targeted for late October release. We'll cover capabilities being added to all of the products in that portfolio. Now, because we're going on a continuous delivery model, which most of you, or some of you at least, may have heard of, means we're releasing almost quarterly, not exactly there. In fact, our last release was in June, and I'm going to touch on a couple of things there just to catch you up if you missed some of what was there, because there were some significant changes on that. So I'll touch on that. We had that release at the end of June, June 26th, and then we've got this next release coming in October. So I guess technically that's a, end of the second quarter and then fourth quarter. But we're getting things out very quickly. I think that's a very good thing. It means you get functionality that you need more quickly, but it also means that we don't have a big release for me to talk about. So I'll keep this fairly quick and to the point, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. Also, when it comes to the questions, if there's something I didn't touch on that you are interested in, please let me know, because as the product manager for this portfolio, I'd like to hear what what your needs are, what your concerns are, so that we can try and roll that into the product. So, I'm not really going to go into what we have on tap for the future release, but like I said, if there's anything that you're interested in that you didn't hear about, feel free to ask me about that as well. I see something on here that says the voice is gone. Sam, can you tell me if you can hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear for me,
okay.
Todd.
All right, then I'll stop looking at that chat and just keep going, and assume you'll let me know if something's gone wrong.
Yep,
all right. Cool. Thank you. All right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and dive into this. First, a disclaimer. Probably all of you have seen this before. Like I said, I'm not really going to go into much futures, but since I'm talking about a release that isn't out yet, you should take these as plans, not commitments. There you go. Okay, so here's the little bit of recap that I wanted to touch on. So the big thing that we did in June was simplify our portfolio. We started that back in March with the release of IBM monitoring, which you see on the left there, which was really our resource monitoring. It says application-aware infrastructure monitoring. What that means is it provides a little bit more than just the infrastructure monitoring that you may have been familiar with IBM Tivoli monitoring. So it adds some additional application component monitoring as well as end-user response time monitoring. So that was the start of it, but we really finished off that simplification by releasing the rest of the version 8 products on June 26th. So that's when we released IBM Application Performance Management on-premise. I should be more specific, because these were available in SaaS, but we've now added the on-premise releases for IBM APM, Application Performance Management, and IBM Application Diagnostics. Now that one was actually a rename of IBM Application Performance Diagnostics, and it added significant capability to that as well. So the other thing that was new there is the third offering that was released then, the fourth offering in the portfolio, called IBM Application Performance Management Advanced. And what that is it's a package of both APM and application diagnostics. So it's got everything. That is the whole application performance management suite in one product. So if you need to, to do everything from resource monitoring to transaction tracking to deep dive, that's the best solution for you. As it says at the bottom, and I mentioned a second ago, these are available on-premise now, and also as software as a service offerings, and also you can do a little bit of both. So you can use this as a hybrid offering as well. One of the important things to mention here as well about these offerings is, if you're familiar with the portfolio prior to the release of the version 8 offerings, we have a number of products. Most of them are a variation of IBM Tivoli Monitoring, or ITCAM as we call it, which is IBM Tivoli Composite Application Manager. And there's a number of those products. And also Smart Cloud APM. And those products still exist, so if that's, if that's your specific need, if that's what meets your needs, those are still available. But what we did do is we package those into our version 8 products. So really the idea is we want to make it much easier for you to understand, which product you need based on the capabilities you need, and not have to look at a bunch of different products, but just buy the one product that meets your needs and suits the capabilities that you're looking for. So even if you're not ready to move to version 8, the newest capabilities, the new architecture, you can still use the new products. You can still purchase the new products because they do have those version 6 and version 7 capabilities from ITM and ITCAM in them. So let me just real quick show you what I mean there. So here's a slide kind of showing the mapping, but I'm going to actually jump down a little because I'm not really as concerned about that as just giving you an idea of what's in the package. Okay, so we're looking here at IBM monitoring, and as I mentioned, actually in the package, so if you were to buy IBM monitoring version 8, it's now 8.1.1 and will be 8.1.2 in October, it actually contains ITM, ITM for VE, which is virtual environments, Smart Cloud monitoring, some of the Smart Cloud APM entry capabilities, Microsoft apps, and some of the ITCAM for apps capabilities. So it's got, it's got all of that in the package. Same with APM. It's got basically all of ITCAM for apps as well. It's got everything that's in IBM monitoring. It's really a superset of IBM monitoring. It's got all of that capability, plus the additional agents in ITCAM for apps like SAP and whatnot that aren't available in IBM monitoring, and it adds transaction tracking as well. So it's really the equivalent of Smart Cloud APM standard, and in essence replaces it, and in fact includes that. So you can purchase IBM APM instead. Same with AD. It's got both ITCAM for AD and the new AD capabilities. So that's the idea, and that's really what I wanted to make everyone aware of, because that was a big change to the portfolio as far as its impact to you at the moment, as I just showed. It should make it easier for you because the portfolio is basically boiled down to four offerings now. But if you still want those other, if you still feel the other products are a better fit based on where you are right now, then that's fine as well. With that said, a couple other things just to catch up. One of our big focuses right now is in the version 8 capabilities, to really make sure we have a very strong solution for our IBM middleware. As such, we started that in Q2 by releasing some additional middleware resource monitoring coverage with the enhancing the MQ agent and adding the IBM Integration Manager as well, so IIB, Integration Broker. There's the IIB agent in there as well. We also started to enhance the end-to-end transaction tracking for the IBM middleware stack. We enhanced some of the transaction tracking capabilities for WAS, the IBM HTTP server, and DB2. We're going to continue that in 8.1.2, and I'll talk about that more by adding transaction tracking for MQ and IIB. We also added historical reporting for the WAS metrics, as well as the existing reports that we had for end-user response time monitoring. So these are some of the highlights from Q2 that I just wanted to make sure you were aware of. We also enhanced the deep dive capabilities with the popular in-flight request views. So if you're not aware of that, that is something that was added in June. So that's really the coverage and capability that we added back in June. Now let's talk about what we're going to focus on here. So as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more about the transaction tracking for MQ and IIB that's coming in 8.1.2. Also, we've got new website monitoring service. This is basically the synthetic monitoring for version 8. It is SaaS-based, and it does allow you to monitor from multiple points of presence around the world. So I'll talk about that a little bit more further on in the presentation. We've got additional coverage, and again, that's something I'll touch on here in a little bit, but you can see some of what's there. One of the other things that I won't really get into more detail, I mean, there's a handful of other things here as well. Some scalability enhancements, the deep dive diagnostics enhancement for the .NET agent. That, if that's something you use, that could be a very important enhancement for you because we're doing some performance improvements. And what we're doing really is enhancing or reducing the performance impact for the level 1 and level 2 monitoring. So just to give you an idea of what that means, so level 0 is basic resource monitoring, and the impact for that is about 1%. Level 1 monitoring adds in end user response time, so it's resource monitoring and then the end user response time, and that with this release, the impact there will be about 2% overhead on your throughput. And then level 2 monitoring is if you're doing application topology, so you're doing transaction tracking with the .NET agent, the instance level topology view is also part of the transaction tracking, and then the instance level performance. So rather than just getting aggregated information, if you want to be able to troubleshoot and make sure that you capture the right, the instance that has a problem, that impact, the target here is about 5% or less impact. So that's a significant enhancement as well. One other one that's not shown here that I'll mention is the side-by-side upgrade. It's not on here because it's really just a part of the upgrade process from if you're going from 8.1 or 8.1.1 to 8.1.2. But it is significant enough to mention in my mind because the goal of this is to make it really a something you can do with zero downtime, so you can actually do the upgrade, ideally with zero or very minimal downtime, so you don't have to find a maintenance window, or if you do, again, it's a very minimal downtime. Our goal is zero downtime. The other thing is obviously minimal effort as far as the upgrade goes as well. So what we've done, now there is a caveat to it. The way it works is that what you'll do is you'll create an 8.1.2 managing server. It's called the MIN. That's what we call our managing server, MIN. You'll create an 8.1.2 version, and then it will pick up the configuration information from the 8.1.1 server, and then you can shut down the 8.1.1 server, and the 8.1.2 server will take over. That's a very high-level view of it. If you are interested in it, you can certainly we can certainly talk about it more, maybe at the end of this call, or you can get involved in the beta and get your hands on it and see how it works. As far as the requirement to spin up, another min node, it's a pretty simple process, really, especially if you've got a virtualized environment. The idea is that you can just spin up a virtual machine, install that. There's almost no effort involved on the user's part. So if you're doing the install, it's really just starting a script. It'll then, as I mentioned, pick up the config from the existing 8.1.1 server. So as far as your time spent, it's probably starting the download, then starting the script, and then actually shutting down the 8.1.1 server. That's really all there is to it. It's just a few minutes worth of time. It allows you to do the upgrade basically online without impacting users. So it's a different upgrade process. Certainly like to get your feedback on it if that's something that you have some interest in, or even concerns about it. Either way, would definitely like to hear it. So I didn't have any further details on it here in the presentation, but again, it's something that we can talk about in more detail if you would like. So what I am going to focus on for the rest of the time here are three main highlights. One, of course, is the transaction tracking. That is the key focus for this release. The other is the extended coverage. Now, there's only so much I can say about some of these, CentOS, Debian, and Scientific Linux. The important thing is the additional coverage that we're providing. So if that's a platform that you use, then you'll be interested to know that we will be, or that we intend to add that coverage in 8.1.2. So, you know, I think I could show you screenshots and things like that. You probably already have a pretty good idea of what it looks like. If you don't, you can certainly go to IBM Service Engage and look at our existing OS agents. They all look pretty similar. Consistency is a good thing. MSCS, Microsoft Cluster Server, that's something we already had in the version 6 and version 7 environment. We're adding a native version 8 agent. So if you're using version 8 or you're interested in moving to version 8, or you're new to the IBM APM solution, that's some coverage that we're adding to version 8. The same is true with Cisco UCS. That's a new native agent for version 8. Now, the one that I think is most interesting that I'll go into more detail in here in a little bit is SAP HANA, because that's a pretty popular component, especially in high transaction environments. So we've certainly heard a lot of interest in that, and we plan to add the support. Now, it is very important to note the date there, because the 8.1.2 release is in October, but this agent will be added to the release. Our plan is to have it added in December. So that's the target for that. So the other thing, which I think is pretty exciting, is the addition of the SAS synthetic monitoring. So being able to ping your websites does a little more than that, but run your scripts, test your transactions, and really test them from different areas around the world. Is there was a gap in version 8. It's something we're addressing, and it'll be a part of its initial release. Will be a part of 8.1.2. So I'll show you a little bit about that as well at the end. So let me go ahead and talk about the transaction tracking. Now, there's not that much, if you're familiar with the portfolio or familiar with APM, and I'm sure all of you are, then you know what transaction tracking is. The idea is to isolate bottlenecks, find out where the problem is, so that you don't spend time on a bridge call or something like that. So that's the goal. The main point here is that we're adding the transaction tracking. Before, what you could see is the transaction tracking from the WAS server, and if it was making maybe a JMS call or something like that, you could certainly see that already, because that's something that really the WAS agent itself can provide. It can see those calls coming in and out. What you couldn't do, though, was get specific details and then dive down from there into the details for MQ or IIB. So now with the addition of the transaction tracking, you're going to be able to get more details, like the information you see here. Really, I guess the screenshot, there's a number of screenshots I could have put in here. I didn't put them all in here, but the point is, on this one, focus on the middle there, where it breaks it down into execution time and wait time. So instead of just seeing that a call went out to a queue, a message request or something like that, and it took X amount of time to execute, now you can get more detail, and you can get more detail than this, obviously, but you start getting more information on what's going on, and you can start getting, we have some views where the information is presented along with the status for the message queues themselves, so that you can really not only see that you've got an issue with the transaction and it appears to be slowing down at MQ, but right next to that, without having to drill down any further, get an idea of where the problem is. So that's the coverage that we're adding. We also have data power and data power coverage as well. And of course, I mentioned HTTP server and DB2, which we added back in the June release. The data power coverage is not, we do have the resource monitoring, we do not have the transaction tracking yet. But the view here that I'm showing it looks a little complicated, but I think one of the beauties of this view is it shows you how you can set up a dashboard to show you, to really give you an overview of the health of the components that make up your application, and then drill down from there. It's really easy to do, something that's easier than was the case in the previous Tivoli Enterprise Portal. You can simplify the screen as well. There's a lot of information here, so it's certainly possible to get a simpler view, but I like this view just because it shows how you can get, kind of at a glance, see where the hotspots are in your environment. So with the addition of this capability, just to give you, an idea, obviously we have the resource monitoring for the queues. We can tell you all sorts of things about your queues, your queue depth, your dead letter queues, whether messages are flowing. Same with IIB, determining the types of problems, the quantity and speed of messages flowing in IIB, that type of thing. But, just to give you an example of a pretty common type of scenario that you might run into, if the TCP connection is down between your message flow adapter and your queue manager, you might see something like you would be able to identify that by the age of the last message in the remote queue getting older and older. That's one way that you might identify that. Something you could go look at, but who has the time, if you've got a lot of queues, you're not going to sit there and monitor those. You need to be notified of that. And that's one of the metrics that we can gather is the oldest message age. We can also spot trends and tell you if it's getting older and alert you to that. The other thing that we might be able to do that's worth mentioning here is with Predictive Insights. Now that's the full product name is IBM Operations Analytics Predictive Insights. So I am going off to another product, but it is worth mentioning because with that, it can take the metric information that we gather and it can do a couple of things. One, it can alert you that you're trending towards a problem instead of that you've already hit a problem. So that's one way to be more proactive in your management. It can also, with that, so I guess as an example, I mentioned, if you see the age of a message getting older, well, we can set up so that, if it deviates from the norm, what's normal, how old is okay? Probably not very old, but it can automatically identify baselines and then alert you if it's deviated from that baseline and it is trending towards a problem. The other thing that it can do that's really cool, though, is it can also tell you about related metrics. So it can say this metric, for instance, TCP connection, is related, and then it'll show you the status for that as well. Is it trending in a certain direction, or in this case, just down? In which case, that gives you an idea of where to look. Instead of having to go look through, different views to try and find the information, it points you right to where the problem is. So that's a really valuable tool. Same with the other analytics tool, log analysis. We have Insight Packs specifically for MQ and IIB that can really help resolve problems by helping to point you to information in the log file. So if the metrics don't tell you everything you need to know, the log files might. For SAP HANA monitoring, HANA is an in-memory database. Like I said, it's intended for high volume transactions. It is something that I believe is pretty popular. I don't know if anybody on here is using it, but certainly heard a lot about it. Now, we can get a lot of the key information about it. You can see all the alerts, events, CPU utilization, all those things, SQL statements, logs. So we're going to give you the information you need to understand the health of the HANA device. But the real value, of course, is providing that kind of like the view I just showed you, so that you can see not only the health of your SAP environment, but the other components that might make calls out to or that are a part of it, but that are not SAP components specifically. Because SAP does have its own metrics, and we're getting that information, but we're getting we provide additional value, and in particular the end-to-end monitoring that we provide to give you the whole picture of the environment. All right, now the website monitoring, what it is right now, I mentioned this is synthetic monitoring. What it does is you create scripts. Basically, you record scripts from your browser using a tool called Selenium. This is something you can look up Selenium on Google if you're not familiar with it, but it's a free tool that allows you to record scripts on your browser. So that's what we'll have in October, is the use of, you can create scripts with Selenium to automate your transactions, and then you can upload those to IBM Website Monitoring, and it'll run those scripts. Now you can set this up. It will have, our plan is to have 9 points of presence around the world. So what you do is you upload the scripts. Well, you create the script. You can see the steps there. You upload the script and you set the schedule. You can set the interval, how often you want it to run, and you can set the locations that you want it to run from as well, out of those 9 locations. And you can have any number of scripts. And as far as Selenium, if you're not familiar with it, it's really easy. The feedback we've gotten from the pilot that we're running is very good. So it's a very easy tool to use to record your scripts, and then it takes, generally I think the feedback's been that, just less than 15 minutes to get it uploaded and up and running. So it makes it really easy to test your transactions for your, your external web apps. And it'll even tell you, based on the interval that you're monitoring, it'll give you an estimate of what the cost will be. So very simple, easy to use, very cool. Cool capability. Now, one of the things I mentioned is, this is for your external web apps. So that we do intend to add capability for internal apps and things like that. But that is a future that we can talk about as well. But in the first release, it will be for the external apps, and then we'll add capability to do internal apps as well, different types of apps using other tools as far as, recording scripts and things like that. So, but you can get started with the external apps with the October release. This will be a separate piece. It's not actually a part of the capabilities. So I went through all that. Let me go back. Actually, I'm going to go back a few screens here just so I can recap. And okay. So just to give you an idea of where these capabilities are in the portfolio, I should have put this on the slide, but just occurred to me. So the transaction tracking capability, that's not available in IBM monitoring. It is available in IBM APM and APM Advanced. Those are the 2 products that have our transaction tracking. So anytime you see transaction tracking, it will be available in both of those products. It'll never be one or the other. It'll always be in both. The additional monitoring coverage, CentOS, Debian, Scientific Linux, MSCS, and Cisco UCS. All of those will be available in 3 out of the 4, IBM Monitoring, IBM APM, and APM Advanced. AD is different because it provides the code level diagnostics. So the only time, the only things that are added to it are capabilities that include that deep dive capability. But all of the other products will pick those up. SAP HANA, that will be in APM and APM Advanced only. It will not be in IBM Monitoring. And then the website monitoring, the planned name for this is IBM Website Monitoring on Cloud. And that will be a separate offering. So it'll be a separately priced offering that we'll add in October. So that should give you an idea of where we'll be adding the capabilities. And that's basically it as far as the new capabilities for 8.1.2. As I said, one of the, I guess, negatives, it's not really a negative, but I don't have a big, there's not a year's worth of pent-up capability that you've been waiting for that I have to talk about. So those are the things I wanted to touch on. Those are the highlights for the release. I've got the link to ibmserviceengage.com. You can go there and take a look at what's available now, what came out in 8.1.1. If you haven't seen it already, and if you're not familiar with it, there's a live demo environment there that you can actually get your hands on it, or also sign up for the free trial. This being the tuck, I'm sure you've already heard about that, but just in case you haven't, thought I'd mention it again. And I guess that's it. So with that, let me go ahead and open it up for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd. If you would like to ask a question, you can do so using the chat window located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And we will get those questions out to Todd here momentarily. Todd, would you be extending transaction monitoring to other J2EE platforms for example, JBoss, Tomcat, WebLogic, etc.?
Yeah, we do plan to do that. Now, we already have the resource monitoring for Tomcat and JBoss, so you can see the health of your JVM. That's already available. WebLogic resource monitoring we intend to add in the first quarter next year. As far as deep dive and transaction tracking, we plan to add that for WebLogic as well sometime in the first half of next year, which if you're familiar with our schedule, that if I'm saying first half, that probably means second quarter. But I'm hedging because there's always hope that we can squeeze it in earlier. And as far as JBoss and Tomcat, right now, those are a little further out to get the deep dive and transaction tracking. But they are important, so we're working on prioritizing the next release. As I mentioned, one of the benefits of this is we can get things out more quickly when ready, and also we can adjust our plans more quickly. So feedback is very, very welcome on that. If that's something you need, let me know. But right now, those are our plans. We definitely will be adding them, but right now, that's the time frame.
Are there any plans? Yeah, thank you, Todd. Are there any plans to add an override formula?
An override formula for the situations, I guess, or the thresholds. I assume that's what they're talking about. And yes, that is something that we plan to add. I'm going to say first half. Again, remember these are just targets right now as we work on planning. I'm going to say first half. I know that's something that I've heard from several different places. So it certainly is a high priority, and we'll work on seeing if we can get that into the next release, and if not, then the release after that.
Great. We currently have Tivoli monitoring 6.3, 3-agent and full agent only, and have licensing locked down for a couple of years. So are we able to start introducing version 8.1 agents and dashboard for, say, IIB and MQ monitoring, with a view to migrating everything to version 8?
Well, that is something we plan. So the way it works right now is we do not have entitlement from the ITM and ITCAM products. So there isn't an automatic way to do that. We do plan on doing that. That's something that we'll probably do first half of next year, ideally. So that would provide automatic entitlement where you'll be able to, these version 8 capabilities and packages will show up for you. If you need to do something before then please contact me and let me know, and we can work on it and see if there's something we can do. We try and do, we can try and do something manually for you before that time frame, and we've done it before, so it's something that usually we can do, but it is a manual process and something we need to just discuss and work with your sales rep on. There's generally not much that you have to do on your side. It's just something we need to work with your account team on. Okay.
Great. Another question is, where is the situation update forwarder?
Situation update forwarder. Unfortunately, that's a question I think I'm going to have to follow up on. Let's see. Let me just write that down. Is this something that they're looking for a time frame for delivery? If you could, whoever submitted that question, if you could just follow up with a little more detail, I will follow up on that. It's something I'm not familiar with, so I'm just going to have to go track down the details for you.
Yeah, and we'll be able to get that information to you, Todd. Everyone that's asked these questions, we will have that in the report afterward too, so we can follow up and get the detail you need.
Okay. All right. Very good. Sorry about that.
For synthetic monitoring, what outputs do we see from the scripts? Will it be able to feed data to an on-premise APM installation?
Initially, no. It's a SaaS-based. Now, I guess that said, I'll have to check. You may be able to feed it into an on-premise installation. Now, I know it won't run as an on-premise initially. That's something that's further out on the roadmap, like second half of next year. But as far as being able to view the information in the same UI, whether it's on-premise or SaaS, I'll need to verify that, but that may very well be the case. And it can show you things like, the response time, the number of sessions, that type of thing, as far as the type of information you're going to see. And I had a view, a screenshot. I don't know if I can pull it up right away, so I can always follow up. But it gives you an idea, and what it can do is rather that it doesn't just give you the response time for the overall transaction. It breaks down the steps and gives you a breakdown of the response time at each step in the transaction.
Great. Are you able to talk about the number of managed systems supported?
Sure. Right now we're at 2,000. Actually, to be more specific, that is 2,000 agents. So it depends on how many agents you run per server. Our target for the 4Q release is 3,000 agents. That is a target. We may or may not get there by then, but if not, then that would hit in the first quarter next year release. But really, our target right now is 3,000 agents by the end of this year, and then 5,000 and maybe beyond with horizontal scaling as something first quarter or first half of next year being our target.
Excellent. Will there be an agent for Power VIO systems? There's one for the HMC already.
Yes, that is something that that we're working on now. I believe that's trying to remember where that is on the schedule. I believe that's a first quarter, but I guess it's something that's in one of the next few releases as far as our current targets. So we are looking at adding the Power VIO capabilities, the virtualization capabilities that we have in V6 to our V8 agents. So I'll have to go verify the date on that and get back to you. But I know it's it's obviously not in this release, but I believe it is coming up in one of the first half releases.
Great. Does the ITCAM portion offer a suggested fix?
Does the ITCAM? I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there's a second part to this. Yep. Does the ITCAM portion offer suggested fix, or does it just point you to the troubled area?
Okay. As far as ITCAM, the ITCAM agents. I mean, typically, I think I understand the question, but I'm just trying to figure out. Generally, as far as those go, all of them are going to try and point you to the problem. In the ITCAM specifically, they have things like expert advice. So when a situation is fired and you get an alert, you can go to that alert workspace, and you may have expert advice, which helps you to determine, gives you a kind of a knowledge base of information on what might be the problem. So that's generally how that works. Now with the new UI, the goal really is to help point you to where the problem is, and so that you can get there in just a few clicks. And the way it does that really is just by what's turned red on the console, and the type of view I showed where you can see all of your components in one view and see pinpoint where it is, or ideally, better yet, just with the transaction tracking, you should be able to isolate where the problem is. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I mean, certainly the goal is, whether it's the existing ITCAM capabilities, which are based on our version 6 and 7 architecture, or version 8, it's not just to point you to where you have a problem, but help you get to the root cause of the problem as well. And there's multiple ways to do that, certainly. Sometimes the metrics can do it, generally not. But with the code level capabilities, the deep capabilities we have with MQ and IIB, and even with the log analysis and predictive analytics, those two can also help with root cause analysis as well by correlating metrics and also helping you find the right information in logs. Because that's one of the most common ways that people end up looking or resolving a problem is looking through logs, but that takes a lot of time. So log analysis is a great way to reduce the time and help you find the root cause, especially with the insight packs that have are based on IBM's expertise with those specific components like WAS, MQ, and IIB. That was kind of a long answer. I was trying to cover a lot of bases and try and make sure I answered the question.
Sure. Will the use of Selenium mean Rational Performance Tester is dropped in version 8 as a script recording tool?
It's not available yet. I wouldn't say it's dropped because we do have it on the roadmap. I don't have a delivery date for it yet. So I don't know if it's something that we'll be able to add first half of next year or exactly when it'll be. But it is something that we plan to add. It may be something that we use for the internal apps. So again, that's something, that's actually something that's on our priority list. So, the more feedback we get on it, the better I can understand the need for it. So the question itself helps me understand that, but please, let me know if that's something you need, because we do plan to add it, but we do not have it yet.
All right. We have a large legacy ITM 6.3 environment with 10,000 agents. How would we integrate 8.1 to such a large legacy environment?
Well, the best way to do that right now is to, if there's an area that needs monitoring, you can start monitoring using V8 there, because you can actually view a lot of that information in the same console. Now, I say a lot of it because if you're a large installation, you've got 10,000 agents. The hybrid view that we have, and I'm using the term hybrid to mean between version 6 and version 8, version 6 and 7, and version 8. You can view that information in the same console, but there is a limitation, as far as how much you can view. I believe it's, I don't know what we've increased the scalability to. I think it's around 1,000 agents can be viewed. So certainly, if you've got 10,000, you're not going to be able to view all of that yet in one UI. So you can start with a small environment. You can view, you could view all of the information for maybe a particular application in one UI, even if it's spanning V6 and V8. And that's probably the best way to get started. If that doesn't work, we can certainly try and work with you to come up with the best solution for you. And of course, with every release, let me think, I don't want to misstate it, but almost every release, if not every release, we're increasing the scalability of V8. So if it's not if the solution I suggested doesn't yet meet your needs, then give it a little bit of time, and we're increasing that rapidly.
Great. Will the UCS agent be an add-on like it was in ITM for virtual environments?
I'm sorry, the UCS agent? Is that the question?
Yep, that's correct.
I guess I'm not sure exactly what that means. It is a separate agent. It's not, I understand what that means. Yeah, so in the question, let me restate it since I stumbled over it for a second. The question is, will the UCS agent be an add-on? What that means is in version 6, we made that a separate product that you purchased outside of any of the existing products. So it had its own part number. The answer to that is no. We intend to put that in IBM Monitoring and IBM APM and IBM APM Advanced. So.
All right. Threshold Manager doesn't offer the possibility to modify the message before sending to Omnibus. Do you plan to add that possibility?
Oops. I'm sorry. I was writing down a follow-up. Can you read the question again?
Absolutely. Threshold Manager doesn't offer the possibility to modify the message before sending to Omnibus. Do you plan to add that possibility?
Well, we do. That will not be an 8.1.2. Again, that's something that we're looking at. Now, that one, well, it's on the list. I would say that, that's maybe a first half of next year, but it's to be determined. But yes, that is something that's been brought up before as well. So the plan right now for that, and I'm stating it because, it's out there, so certainly we have plenty of time to decide how we want to do it. But really, with a lot of these things, what we want to do is enhance or provide the capability via APIs. Certainly in the UI as well, but in a lot of cases, being able to access it and automate the actions via an API. So that's a possibility as well, so that you can automate that action. So there is a plan. I can't give you a firm date on it, but yes, that's a requirement that's been brought up. And as always, let me know if that's important to you.
Excellent. Well, that looks like all the questions we have for now. Like I said, we'll make sure Todd gets all of these questions for everybody for any additional follow-up, or if any other additional details are needed for these questions that he might not have been able to answer at that time. But Todd, thank you very much for your time and for the presentation. That was extremely informative.
Well, I appreciate it, and thanks a lot for all the questions. That was really great. A lot of it is futures. I wish it was all here in 8.1.2, but the feedback really helped. So that was great, and I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, indeed. So again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, from our behalf as well. We appreciate your attendance. Please help us improve our future events and take a few moments to fill out your post-event survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. But this concludes today's conference. You may disconnect and have a fantastic day.